welcome again to everyone joining. And just like we did the last time, please, this is going to be, remember, I promised you the last one was going to be mind-blowing, and it was. You learned how the mind is like the most important instrument in intimacy. And today is even going to be more mind-blowing than, the last one. And so please, if you have friends that you know need to hear this, please take your phone and send them a text message and say, I am on this program. You need to be on it. It's going to be fantastic. So I'll give you a minute as I put on my PowerPoint and say, send a text to a friend and say, today is going to be amazing. You don't want to miss this. Please come. And, for me, this series is not about, as much as, I want you to have amazing sex life. I want you to have amazing relationship. But I want to say something here, that this series is beyond you. It's not just about you and your spouse, but this series is about the future, about your children, about the people around you. Because honestly, if you are fulfilling God's mandate of a healthy marriage, if you are enjoying your marriage and enjoying your sex life, everyone is going to be blessed by it. Your children are going to be blessed by it. The people, your neighbors are going to be blessed by it. And so for me, the reason I'm doing this is not just only for you, as much as I love you and I want you to have an amazing relationship. But I'm saying that for me, it's even beyond you. But the fact that your relationship, your marriage, your intimacy with your significant other, with your spouse, has the power to affect generations. I need that to sink into you, because a lot of times we are selfish as human beings in the way we deal with things, and we think about, it's all about me. So if I don't talk to you, it's just me and you, it's just me and you. If I'm angry with you, if I fight with you, it's just me and you, But I want to say to you today that everything you do in relationship with your spouse does not remain with your spouse. It impacts your children. It impacts your neighbor. It impacts your family. It impacts, your community. And so I want you to see that your investment in this series, your investment today, is not just about you. It's not just for you alone. You're taking time to be part of this is going all the way, to help humanity. And when you understand this, and when you understand the importance of marriage, importance of a healthy relationship, importance of us truly bonding in our marriages and becoming truly one, and understanding the battle, why there's so much battle, there's so much divorces, so many around, the battle that marriages face, and the reason why it is so attacked, and the reason why sex is so commonized and and is so abused, to remove the intimacy, so that it is not giving the sacredness that it's supposed to have. One day I hope to write a book called Sacred Sex, because sex, God created it to be sacred, not commonized, not abused, not demonized either, but to be sacred. And so when we understand this, then this series will make so much sense to you. And this investment will make so much sense to you. And so I welcome you again to join with me as I delve again into Naked and Not Ashamed. And today we'll, hold on, let me move this forward a bit. And what we are learning today will give you a better understanding as we talk about raw socket sex. We give you a fuller understanding of why the topic Naked and Not Ashamed. So today, what are we going to be looking at? So sit down and buckle your belt, your seat belt, and get ready to roll. Today we are going to be looking at sex as the highest level of touch. Remember, for those joining, we have gone through so much. I mean, this is part 3, so you can imagine all we have learned. We have learned about the mind, the brain, how all this impacts sex, our intimacy. We've looked at what intimacy is all about. We've looked at the power of touch. And today we are in part 3, and we are focusing more on the sexual part of it, which is, so we are looking at sex, the highest level of touch, sexual anatomy, physiology, intimacy and hormones, wall socket sex, and discovering your partner. This is what we are going to be looking at. I also want to encourage you, if you are going through this alone, if you are married and your spouse is not with you, I want you to encourage them, because this series, let me say this series, and remember, before I go on, please, I like you making comments. So the chat box is open, and Talkback, can you put the YouTube channel, the YouTube link for the other series, part 1, part 2, so that people can copy it and go back to watch part 1, part 2. But I want to say also that if you are listening alone and your spouse is not with you, I want you to encourage them to listen to this with you. And because this is actually a couple series, it's supposed to be because it makes more sense and it's easier for you to implement what you are learning with your spouse if the two of you are listening to it together. So I want to say that if your spouse is not with you, just somehow bat your eyes if you're a lady, and if you're a man, flex your muscles and say, darling, I need you to be here beside me, because this is going to help us have an amazing relationship. So if you're a lady, I said, bat your eyes. I don't know how to do that very well. Well, I'll try. Bat your eyes. Or if you're a male, show your muscles and say, and if you don't have muscles, just give that lovely smile, that melts your spouse's heart. And say you need to be on this. Now, I want to do a disclaimer as I start. This information in this presentation is presented to couples seeking to grow in their love and knowledge of each other. Couples in abusive or manipulative relationships should seek for help through counseling. Also note that various life situations can impact marital satisfaction and intimacy, but couples seeking to grow in their relationship will strive to turn towards each other and not away during these seasons. Remember that we've learned about it in the sound marital house theory. So if you have also not watched my series on the sound marital house theory, you will understand what it means to turn into each other rather than turn away from each other. So what I'm basically saying here is that this series is basically for people that are in healthy relationship and wanting the relationship to become healthier, wanting to grow. If you are in a relationship that is abusive, manipulative, where you are afraid, you can't trust, there is no trust. Once trust is broken, then every other thing, you cannot truly be naked and not ashamed. When you are not sure, when you are afraid, let me put that word, when you are afraid of your spouse, when you are not sure that your spouse is watching your back, when you are not comfortable to lean on your spouse because you know that you might fall, then please, I want to say that seek for counseling. I want to encourage you, and that just like I've always said, I have a team of counselors that you can utilize if you are in need of counseling, and just reach out to us. Our emails will be at the end of this presentation, and I can always connect you to teams of counselors. So as we go on, remember the video. I'm not going to show it now because of time. But remember the video that we watched about I think during the first part, that tells us that, intimacy is not for the faint-hearted. Intimacy is not, I'm going to say that again, intimacy. If you truly want intimacy in any relationship, you should be ready to be uncomfortable. You should be ready to experience some level of pain sometimes, you know, even as you build on intimacy. So I want to say that again, intimacy that we are talking about. Sex is easy. Sex can be cheap. You can get it anywhere, you know. And so I don't want us to see this as a sex talk. It's not a sex talk. I'm not, you know, it's not about sex, because but what I am really passionate about is intimacy. And we cannot talk about intimacy without talking about sex. So that's why in part 3, we are talking about sex. But beyond sex, what I am focusing on is building intimacy. So we start by saying that sex is the climax of all the gates and should not be engaged until all the other gates has been adequately engaged. Remember in part 2, we talked about the different gates. We talked about the eye gate, the nose gate, the mouth gate, the hand gate, you know, all the gates. And we said, and then remember also for those that were in part 2, we looked at the sensory homunculus of the brain. And we saw that the penis or the vagina has just a little part of sensory in your brain. The part of it that maps your reproductive organ is so tiny, and you know, but the part that maps your hand, your mouth, your face is so large. And oh my goodness, please, if you find yourself unmuted, can you mute yourself? I beg of you today. Can you mute yourself, please? Christiana, can you please mute yourself? Christiana, I'm trying to mute you. Thank you. So, sorry about that. So the part that maps, so in our brain, if you remember from part 2, and as I said, please, you need to watch part 2. You know, our brain, you know, we have the sensory brain and the motor part of our brain. And the part of our brain, you know, that is responsible for interpreting the signals, the sensory signals from our bodies. The part is that interprets signals from the face, from the lip, from the hand, from the feet, is a large chunk of our brain. Whereas the part that interprets signals from the sexual organs, from the vagina and the penis, is so small. That is why, you know, a man can look at, you know, can visualize a naked woman, his naked wife, and immediately have an erection. And then, and that is why you might be touching someone's sexual organ. You might be touching your wife's vagina and she doesn't feel like doing anything, because the part of the brain that interprets that is very small. If the other part of the brain that, you know, if she's angry, if what he or she is seeing is not nice, you know, then if what he or she is seeing is not nice, then, you know, let me see. Okay, thank you. If what he or she is seeing is not nice, then every other thing, you know, that part that is not happy is going to inhibit the part that is happy. So let me move on. So we start today, and I will keep saying it throughout the season, this session. Please, if you have not watched part 1 and 2, I beg you, go and watch part 1 and 2, because then, you know, you will be able to, this will make more sense to you, and you can even come back and watch part 3. So we are starting with the sexual anatomy and physiology. And this, I mean, we've all done anatomy and physiology, but it's just that this will not be complete if I don't talk about sexual anatomy and physiology, but I'm not going to spend too much time, you know. So you have the female sexual anatomy. I'm going to jump a bit to look at this. Okay, we'll come back to that picture. And so you have the male and the female sexual anatomy. You have the top, which is the pubic bone. You have the labia majora. You know, sometimes it's like, I assume we all should know this, but sometimes the reality is that many times we don't even bother to truly look and get to know each other's bodies, you know. And so some people have been married and they have never really looked at each other's bodies. You know, sometimes it might be as a result of embarrassment, shame, culture, and you know that you know you don't even know what it looks like. And so, but I want to say that part of intimacy is to be able to know your partner's body, top and bottom. Top and bottom. It is important. It is, and that is when we talk about naked and not ashamed. To be able to know your partner's body, top and bottom. Because when you know it, you know, then, and we'll talk more about that as we go on. And so you have the female, you have the, you know, the big fold, the labia majora, the small fold, the labia minora. You have this clitoris, which is called the highly sensitive only function, and which they've researched, and they call it the female penis, because it actually came out from the same what do you call it, congenital, the same tissues that make up the male penis. And so it is almost like, you know, in the womb, you know, the baby has both, the baby, before the baby differentiates, before it differentiates into male and female, you know, they are both, you know, the female and, sorry, before the differentiation is almost, it's like that baby is like a hermaphrodite, and it has the capabilities of male, female. And so when the male develop, the female part of the male organ is the clitoris. And then you have the clitoris is just like, as I said, it's like the male penis. It has the external shaft, and then it has the clitoral hood. The vagina is a stretchable canal. That's why it can stretch and a baby can come out from it. And I want to say something here that is very important. Because the vagina is a stretchable canal that can stretch, it does not have a lot of nerves inside it. Because if it does have nerves inside it, it's going to be pain. Childbirth will kill the woman, because as it's stretching and as it's pushing on the nerves, it's going to be so painful. So painful. And so the way the vagina is made to be like an elastic thing that stretches but doesn't really have much innervation, nerve innervation, so that it is not painful. Now, that is important to know during sexual intercourse, because what brings pleasure is not the penis going in and out of the vagina, because the vagina in itself is not very innervated. And so that's why, you know, sometimes you wonder why maybe you put your hand in your wife's vagina and it is irritating, it is not pleasurable, because again, the vagina is not innervated with nerves, because if not, it's going to be killing for her to have a baby. Now, there's a part of the vagina that now has the concentration of the nerves. And that part, we normally call it the G-spot. It is like up to the side of the, so if the woman is lying face up, is like to the corner down to this side. On the, if she's lying face up, is on the right, yes. It's called the G-spot. That G-spot is where you have the concentration of nerve cells in the vagina. Also, vaginal lubrication is important, whether in conception, and I'm going to show you some pictures about what that looks like during fertility periods, during ovulation. The vaginal lubrication is important because it enhances conception, but it also makes sex enjoyable. Now, I'll give an example, and I give this example, you know, to help sometimes men understand what do you call it? I'm trying to think of what to use, because I'm talking to people that are not just Nigerians, but I will use the Nigerian version, and I'll use it, you know, I'll look for something else. I said, you know, having sex without the adequate lubrication Remember what I said. Number one, the vagina is not very sensitive. Doesn't have a lot of nerve cells. It doesn't really have much nerve cells in it. One. Number two, when it is not well lubricated, the skin out inside the vagina is thin, and it can break, it can tear. And so what the lubricant does is to protect it from breaking and tearing. That's why sex can be painful for a woman when there's not enough lubrication, and it's almost like you are just rubbing two skins. So just do this for me. Just put your hand together and just be rubbing it together like this. Be rubbing it together. How do you feel if there's no lubrication? After a while, the friction, it starts getting heated up, and your hands start paining you when you continue rubbing it and there's no lubrication. Your hands actually start paining you. And so that is what happens, that for every thrust that the man makes in, when there's not enough lubrication, becomes a painful one. It becomes painful. So you can imagine someone's lying down there and is supposed to be having an enjoyable time bonding, but is actually in pain. So understanding all of this, the way I described it, for Nigerians is, I use this example. I said, imagine I open your mouth and I pour dry gari, cassava flour, and I pour it into your mouth and I say, swallow it. And you're trying to swallow it. I didn't put water. I didn't put anything. It's just dry gari. And I say, swallow it. I said, it's going to irritate your throat. It's going to be uncomfortable trying to swallow it. You will gag, you will not enjoy it. And I said, now, let me take that same cassava flour. I turn it in hot water. I make a nice soft eba with it. And then I make a nice bowl of ogbono soup or okra. And I turn the bowl of the cassava flour inside the okra or inside the ogbono soup, and I throw it into your mouth. Please, you need to tell me on the chat how that feels. I throw that bowl, soft, nice, but it's not the hard one. I make it really nice and soft. I now turn it inside okra or, ogbono, and then, really, really roll it, and then I throw it into your mouth. Will you swallow it easily? Yes, it's going to just go down your throat. Why? Because one, I made it soft. Number two, I have lubricated it well enough. And so it becomes easy. So your throat, the texture of your throat, the lining is similar to the texture of the lining of your vagina and the internal organs. And so the way when you put hot water, or you take something, it will sear and burn your throat. Or when you put something that is sharp, it can cause tear. So please remember that. Vaginal secretions are signs of health. And then when you douche, can alter the balance. We also have the cervix, which is the small end of the uterus. It's located at the back of the vagina. And then you have the fallopian tubes, where the egg, in which the egg and the sperm travel. Egg travels 1 inch every 24 hours and remains viable for fertilization for 24 to 48 hours after the egg is released. So when the egg is released in a woman, we call that ovulation. And then I will show you a picture. Ectopic pregnancy is when a fertilized ovum or egg is implanted outside the uterus, and then the ovaries are the female eggs. So this is the picture of the woman's reproductive system. So you have down here, this is the vagina. You can see it's made up of it's like an elastic tissue that is folded so that it can expand. So it is folded within, and we call it rugae. And so you have the cervix, which opens into the uterus here. And this is the uterus. And then you can see the fallopian tubes here. And then you have the egg, ovaries by the hand. You can see almost like the woman is, like hand catching the egg. So you have the ovaries. These ovaries will release eggs every month. For most women, once a month. And that period, that is our egg that it needs to be fertilized by a sperm if she has sex with a man. And so this, and the interesting thing is that when this egg is released, it will travel and come in here, waiting for the sperm to come in through the opening of the vagina, the cervix. And then it will fertilize it, and then it will implant on this wall here. Now, sometimes this egg, for some reason, sometimes when it is released, the sperm might be too fast and the egg might be too slow, and then it comes and then it fertilizes and implants, because it actually fertilizes before it implants in the uterus. The sperm actually mix with the egg here before, and then the fertilized egg is what comes to implant. And so sometimes this fertilized egg, instead of coming to implant in the womb, actually implants in the fallopian tube. And then that is what we call ectopic pregnancy. And that is very dangerous, very, very dangerous. Now, I'm going to say a little thing here. You can see this is the woman's reproductive system. So you have here, you can see you have 3 holes. You have this hole here, the urethra. This is the bladder, and this is the urination. And then you have the vagina into the womb, and then you have the anus into the what do you call it, into the colon, cecum, and small intestine, large intestine, and all of that. Now, this is what has been designated for sex. This is for urine, and this is for poo. I want us to remember that. It's important because I'm going to say something. So you have 3 holes here, 1, 2, 3. This and this can be elastic, but this is the most elastic. This, you can see that they all have their terminal. This terminates inside the womb where egg can fertilize it. This terminates in the cecum, colon, and all of that. And then this terminates in the bladder. This is a picture of, and it's important to know all of this. There's part of knowing. This picture is the cervix. So this is the cervix when the woman is not ovulating, is closed. This is the cervix when the woman is ovulating. You can see it is open. You can see the opening. It's so God is wonderful. And this opening allows the sperm to easily go in. And then you can see the fluid when the woman is ovulating. The fluid is very like egg white, very light. And it's like it creates the pathway for the egg, for the sperm to move. The same thing you can see. This is a real picture of the cervix, the opening of the cervix, releasing like the egg white, the lubrication. And this fluids this all happens just as the woman, just about the time the woman is ovulating, in order to accompany the sperm, create a pathway for the sperm to reach the egg. Now, why am I showing this and sharing this? Sometimes when you don't know about this, you wonder why she's wet at certain times and dry at certain times. And you're like, but 2 days ago, it wasn't difficult. It was so easy penetrating, because she was producing all of this liquid. 5 days after, when this liquid is no longer there, the vagina is drier. And so understanding your wives, your spouse, so I'm talking to men right now, understanding this sequence helps intimacy, helps you understand why at certain times of the month, before you touch her, before you touch her body, it's very easy, for her to be connected to you. Whereas at certain times, you spend a lot more, even getting her interested, because during that ovulation period, which for a lot of women, let me see, I didn't have the picture. During the ovulation period, which for a lot of people is the 14th day of her cycle, 14th day, after, from the beginning of her menstrual cycle. For some women, it's not 14 days, it's 7 days. For some women, it's 21 days, but for, like, let's say 65%, it's 14 days. You need to find out what your wife says. It's important. It's part of knowing your body and knowing, because the cycle, because in doing that cycle, different hormones are released. And that's another talk for another day. I'm not going to bore you with all of that. Different hormones are released that affect the body in different ways. Now, for the men reproductive organ is a bit simpler. So I'm not going to spend too much time. You have more of it. You have more you can see on the outside. For the woman, more of it is on the inside. And what you see on the outside is the little clitoris, the labia majora, labia minora, but for the male, and because that's how nature has put it, so that, because if both of them are on the outside, then how will sperm be able to go in? So one is so you have the male, and you have the shaft, you have the head, and then it is the part of the penis that is the most sensitive is actually the glans, the head. And then you have the opening where you have the urethra, opening from the urethra for urine. And then, for the woman, remember, it was two different holes. But for the male, the hole is on top of the penis. And then you have the ridge. So between this ridge here and the head is the most sensitive part for the male organ. Now, you have some men that are not circumcised, meaning the foreskin has not been removed. And so the head is not as visible as here where the head has been removed. So this is, I'm doing Anatomy and Physiology 101, but it's important. Now, I want to say now, this is what a sperm cell looks like. Because, you don't see it. So what you do is you just release fluid when you ejaculate. But your ejaculate for a man is made up of millions and millions of these little things called sperm cells. And they are like this. They have a big head, and then they have a long tail, and they are alive. They are moving. They have life in them. Because if they don't have, and which life do they have in them? It is your life. It is your energy. It is you give your sperm life, because they are moving. They are not, it's not just liquid. When they enter, I wish I had found a picture, a little movie to, about the movement so that you can see. Maybe I will show that in part 4. This sperm, they move, once they inside that liquid, they are like tadpoles. They are going, they are moving, and with their tail, their tail propels them. This is what moves them, and they are going and they are moving towards the uterus. And then they are seeking for the egg. And every, sperm cell, for men that are not infertile, you have men that might have azoospermia. Azoospermia means no sperm cell. And we will talk about that in part 4 when we are talking about sexual dysfunctions. And so when there is no sperm cells, the liquid that is the ejaculate is sterile. There's nothing inside. But for the average person that does not have azoospermia, and I want to deviate here and say that azoospermia can be as a result of childhood mumps. They found out that when you have mumps in childhood, and you have your swollen parotid glands, that it has been shown to actually affect the testes, and it can lead to destruction of the testes, and the man is not able to produce sperm cells, and then that is azoospermia. Now, I'm going to say something at this point. This is a little deviation because this breaks my heart. This is the anus, and it is not a location for a sperm. This is anus. Remember, I showed you the different holes. You have the urethra, you have the vagina, and you have the anal holes. All of them have their uses. The one that is a location for the sperm, because the sperm is alive and it is supposed to be moving towards the uterus. The sperm was not designed to enter into the rectum. This is the anus. You can see where the anus leads to. The anus leads to the rectum, and then from there, sigmoid colon, descending colon, transverse colon, and then, enters into the small intestine. That is the end it goes into. It does not, there's no hole that links the anus to the vagina or to the reproductive system. And what comes out of the anus, I'm sorry, this looks gross, but sometimes it's good to look at to see these things. What comes out of the anus is called poop. It's called poop. And what is poop made up? Poop is made up of 74.6% water, bacteria, please mark that word, bacteria biomass, plenty bacteria, which is 25 to 54%. The poo is made up of between 25 to 54% bacteria. And then it has undigested carbohydrate, some fiber, protein, and fat. That is the remaining. So when you put the penis in the anus, what you are entering into a land of bacteria. A land of bacteria where when you remove it and you put it into the vagina, you are helping to disseminate bacteria into the vagina. And so I want to say, I know there's a lot of adventurous things out there, but I want to say, for the sake of your health, for the sake of your wellness, it's not, everything is not, certain things should not even be conceived. For the sake of your health, for the sake of your wellness, for the sake of your future. We have so much in life going on right now. We don't know how they came about. You have all kinds of cancers. You have uterine cancers, you have cervical cancers, you have all kinds of cancers. You want to reduce putting the wrong things into the wrong holes and allow what nature has put each hole for. The hole for the anus is to get rid of waste from the intestine, from what you eat. It is not to introduce sperm into. The hole of the vagina is also for, it has its own specific use, as the same one, the hole for the urethra has a specific use. So I just had to do that. It's just important for us to understand, because if we don't understand these things, there's a lot of, I've heard so much on, my spouse, wants to have anal sex, what do I do? Education is important. It's important to understand what the anus is for, what comes out of the anus, what, how that impacts your health when you begin to carry things from the anus into the vagina, and just what you are doing to yourself. And that does not bring sex intimacy, the kind of intimacy that is healthy. Let me see. I know so many, I've had some chats. Just give me a moment. Amazing work of God, yes. Okay. I just want to see if I have any questions I need to attend to. Okay, good. So let me go on. So please, as I said, please feel free to put in questions on the chat from time to time. I will go back and check it and then let you know. Okay, so as we are talking about naked and not ashamed, so we've looked at anatomy and physiology. I did a quick one on anatomy and physiology. You can always, there's so much information out there. You can go and read more and watch things on anatomy and physiology. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is hormones. And I found this interesting. There are some hormones that we call them love hormone and pleasure hormone that the body produces. And understanding them and understanding how that works in intimacy is very important. There's the first one, the one I'm really going to focus on is called oxytocin. It's called the love hormone. In a study of 20 men who were in a committed relationship for 28 months, they gave them a whiff of oxytocin because we human beings, everything that is natural, we produce them in the lab also. So there's oxytocin that is produced in the lab. Oxytocin is known as a bonding hormone. It is produced in the body when a woman is in labor. It actually helps to strengthen contraction. It is also produced in the body when a woman is nursing, and it actually enhances the bonding when she's breastfeeding. And as the baby is sucking on the breast, the oxytocin is increased, and it's called bonding hormone. It actually is a chemical. It's like a chemical that causes you to bond with the baby. But it's also shown that in intimacy, in relationship, when people are in love, when people are in relationship, oxytocin is also released because, as I said, it is called bonding hormone, and it is important in helping couples bond. Under the influence so they did an experiment. They wanted to see, does oxytocin really, really affect bonding in couples? So they took 20 men who were in committed relationships for about 28 months with women. And then they sprayed oxytocin. And then after that, they gave them pictures of their partners, the faces of their partners to look at. And then they also gave them faces of random women that are not their partners to look at. And then they were put some gadget on their brain to see, how their brain was responding. And they found out that when they gave them the oxytocin, when they check their brain, when they put pictures of their partner, the part of their brain that is for pleasure and reward lit up. It was like Christmas tree, but when they showed them the faces of other women, that it had the opposite effect. Those faces actually suppressed the area for pleasure and reward. Now, what is the implication of this research? Let's read on. The results suggest that couples who keep a high level of intimacy in their relationship can maintain stronger bonds. So the more intimate you are, the stronger your bond, and the more you are more immune to strange relationships. Isn't that amazing? Why? Because that's why intimacy, naked and not ashamed, is so important. The more intimate you are, the more you deepen your level of intimacy, the more oxytocin you produce. The more oxytocin you produce, the stronger your bond. The stronger your bond, the less likely for you to get involved in extramarital relationships. We've always known that, but then research shows us that when you are first becoming intimate, you are releasing a lot of dopamine and oxytocin. That is creating the link between the neural system that are processing your facial cues, your voice, and and all of that. So when you are first in love and all of that, you're actually releasing a lot of oxytocin. As time goes on, you become less intimate. And when you become less intimate, life happens, but by the time you are, now you are not just the two of you, you are not calling each other 24/7, you are no longer, all those things, you know what they are doing, you think it's a waste of time. They are all increasing your oxytocin. The cards that you are sending, looking into each other's eyes, making phone calls, saying, I just wanted to hear your voice. All of these things actually enhances production of oxytocin and dopamine. And the more of that you produce, the more you bond. And then you get married and you say, John, we are now married. All that thing was just for, people just cutting. And you stop doing them. You stop calling each other. You stop, buying gifts for each other. You stop, those phone calls. What happens? The linkage in your brain begins to decay. Remember what I said in part 2, that neurons that fire together will wire together. And so when you are constantly creating a particular pathway, they will continue to work together and increase. But when you don't continue in that pathway, then they will die off. And so after a while, the excitement begins to die off because you are not doing them again. It says that, but activities that release oxytocin, such as looking into each other's eyes, holding hands, kissing, and having sex, may help to restore the connection. Can you believe that? Remember the picture I showed you about the brain, the part of the brain that is sensory, are parts that the face, the lip, the hand. And so when those parts are engaged, they actually causes you to release oxytocin. It says oxytocin released during sex and heightened by skin-to-skin contact. It deepens feeling of attachment. It makes couples feel closer to one another. Oxytocin is also known as the love hormone. It provokes feeling of contentment, calmness, security, which are often associated with mate bonding. You see, vasopressin is linked to behavior that produces long-term monogamous relationship. Isn't this interesting? That when we have more oxytocin, when we hold hand, when there's skin-to-skin contact, not necessarily sexual contact. Most times, the only time couples have skin-to-skin contact is when they are having sex. Sometimes, some people might not even take off their clothes, but it's saying that skin-to-skin contact, hugging your spouse, sitting close to each other, when you are watching something, just that feeling. Why do you think your children, I can see Toyo, I saw the boy, why do you think the children will come? They will lie on you, they will hug you, they will kiss you. You are bonding with them. Why do you think the mother, when you hold that baby and you nurse the baby to your breast and you nurse the baby, and then after a while, if you put the baby away, the baby start crying because a bond is developed. And you know what is responsible for the bond? This hormone called oxytocin. And it is also, and that is why some women become more bonded to their children than to their husband. Because they are releasing so much oxytocin with their children and they are not releasing any with the husband because they are not touching each other, because there's no skin-to-skin contact. Even in the animal world, if you go, I watch even lions. You see the baby lion, you see them, they will come, they will put a head on each other, they will kiss, they will lick each other's skin. The body-to-body contact, not just doing sex. Please mark my word. It is not just doing sex. Sex is part of it, but it is a little part of the release of oxytocin. The oxytocin that will cause you to bond and cause you to become content, increase calmness. You see why I said, why I'm doing this is not just about you. If you have calmness, you have contentment, and you have security, your children are happier. Your neighbor is happy. Your neighbors are happier. The world is a better place. The world is a better place when you are calm, when you are content, and when you are feeling secure. And so that is why this is so crucial to me and to you. So it is so interesting. Then dopamine, this activates the reward circuit, helping to make love a pleasurable experience, similar to euphoria associated with the use of cocaine or alcohol. Meaning that dopamine actually gives you a high in relationship. When we are engaged in romantic love, the neural machinery responsible for making critical assessment of other people, you know, with whom we are romantically involved, shuts down. You know, so this is powerful. Meaning that when the oxytocin is high, it is difficult for you to be critical about your spouse. Their mistake, the things they do that you don't like, you overlook, you are not focusing on it. Can you imagine? Oh. And that is what used to happen before you got married, because oxytocin was high. All the stupid things the person was doing, you overlooked it. You overlooked it. And that's why we say love is blind. It's not because love is blind, it's because oxytocin is high. But then after you get married and then oxytocin starts going down and it's not getting replenished, then your critical assessment of that person, that thing that covers it, is removed. And you begin to see all the faults. All the faults. And you're wondering, didn't you see this all before? Yes, they were there, but oxytocin covered it. And that's why we say love covers a multitude of sin. And so we need oxytocin in our life so that, you know, to honestly, to get along with any other human being, you cannot afford to be critical and live with somebody and really enjoy living with that person. Because we human beings are bags we have baggage that we come with. Remember we talked about that. None of us is without our baggage. Every single one of us, we have baggage we carry. From our family of origin, you know, from our, you know, from so many things we've done. So we need oxytocin, we need dopamine. And remember this, I talked about this in marriage builders. I said the law of thermodynamics, the second law of thermodynamics impacts relationship. It says that when you don't put any energy into a system, the system will fall into a state of decay. Simply speaking, you don't need to do anything stupid to destroy your marriage. You just don't have to do nothing. Just don't do nothing. Because everything in life goes towards zero entropy. For those that are engineers, you know what I'm talking about. When you don't add energy to a system, the system dies. The system goes into decay. When you pump your tire and you leave your tire down and you don't drive your car, you don't put in, after a while, the tire goes flat. Your battery goes flat. It's the same thing with intimacy. When you don't do all those things you were doing before to build intimacy, and this is beyond just about your spouse. Look at what I said. It allows calmness in your life. It allows you to feel safe and secure. It allows you to do more with your life. When you are in a relationship and it is thriving, it's better that you are single than you are married and you are unhappy. Research have shown that single men or single women who are happy in their marriages, you know, are richer, are able to do more. You know, I'm not talking about people that do 419 and I mean do what do you call it? You know, you have people with 10 wives that, you know, I mean, yeah, they might be rich, but you know, there are quite a number of things that they've done. But, you know, it is so healing and so healthy. And remember this, my lovely scripture. It says that through wisdom, a house is built, and by understanding it is established, and by knowledge, the chambers are filled with precious and pleasant riches. And so what we are learning today is to fill our chambers, our marital relationship, with pleasant and beautiful riches. Now, what is the step? So we've been talking about bonding. We've been talking about bonding, and we looked at oxytocin, and we saw that oxytocin, you know, it's very important in bonding. And so there's these steps to bonding that, we always use. It's like, for people to bond, it says step 1 is eye to body. Step 2 is eye to eye, voice to voice, hand to hand, arm to shoulder, arm to waist, mouth to mouth, kissing, hand to head, hand to body, mouth to breast, hand to genital, genital to genital. Now, can you see in all the steps, look at where genital comes in. Towards the end, the last 2 steps is where genital, but sometimes, do you know that we miss it in relationships? We start with this, hand to genital. Do you know how it is horrible? You just go to your spouse and you just grab their breast, or you grab their genital. It's not something that that is not how bonding takes place. You don't grab people's organs, their sexual organs, and you want to. That's not bonding. Bonding, like we said, starts with, this is the step, eye to body, eye to eye, voice to voice, what you say, from your eye. The eye is the window into the soul. And that is why just looking into each other's eye can be a bonding process. The eye is a window. And that's why it starts with the eye. Eye to body, eye to eye. Eye is saying something, voice to voice. What are your words saying? What are you saying to your spouse? What is your spouse hearing? All this affects your brain. Hand to hand. Remember what we talked about, touching, and arm to shoulder, arm to waist. Then mouth to mouth, kissing, hand to head, holding the person's head. Then hand to body, mouth to breast, hand to genital, and genital to genital. Now, we are now coming towards the end of this, and we arrived at wall socket sex. So what is wall socket sex? The first place I heard this wall socket sex was by an author of a book. His name is called Snash. And he wrote a book called The Sexual Crucible. It's not, don't worry, if you go and read the book, it was a textbook for a class, but it's you might be bored reading it. But in the book, it talked about, he has another book that you might find more interesting, and that book is called Passionate Marriage. Passionate Marriage by Snaz. So you can look out for that book, Passionate Marriage. It talked about wall socket sex. And as the first time I heard it was in 2006, and it stayed with me. It stayed in my mind because honestly, it resonated, the way it described it, resonated with what I felt sex should be all about. I've always felt sex was sacred, and that intimacy was so big, was beyond just having sex. And so he said, wall socket sex is not easy to achieve. So please remember, I said intimacy is not for the faint-hearted. I've been saying that intimacy is not for the faint-hearted. To get to the level of intimacy is for the mature, is for those that are grown up. It's not for babies. It says it's not easy. It says it requires radical honesty. It requires self-awareness. It requires people that have matured and they have grown up. You are not dependent on somebody else validating you. You know who you are. And that's why, remember, one of the things I started this class with was on how to create more self-awareness. Because you cannot really enjoy your relationship if you don't have good self-awareness. If you really have not come to terms to know who you are, and be okay with, with people not thinking you are the best thing since sliced bread. When you can self-suit yourself, when you are not waiting that until your partner says sorry, then you are not going to forgive or move on. When, you are okay if the person doesn't apologize, you are okay with your life, you move on. When you are able to self-validate, you know who you are. You know that you are special and wonderfully made. So it says, and it was so funny as I was reading him saying that, because these are things we know. So remember what I said, that real intimacy is not for the faint-hearted. Real intimacy, really deep intimacy, starts with self-awareness, starts with coming to terms with yourself. In marriage and family therapy, we call it self-differentiation. When you are able to be in a relationship, but at the same time you are able to be separate. You don't get lost. You don't need somebody to make you feel, complete. You are complete. You don't need that person has to make me feel complete or make me feel whole. It is like a hole meeting another hole. We call it differentiation. It says that blissful sexual experience resides not in the body. This is what I have been saying, or sex organs, but in the head, in the heart, and in their combined power to electrically merge the person with their spouse. I have been saying this. And so when I read it, I was like, wow. It says blissful sexual experience is not about orgasm. It's not about the organs. Remember what I showed you, that the organ is the organ part. And that is why, when people that spend their life masturbating are operating at a very low level of sex. That is sex with self. When, and you get your body used to that level of orgasm. That is a low level. Because blissful, real intimacy, blissful sexual experience is not in the body. Remember what I said, it's sex. That's why please watch part 2, where we talked about the brain and sex. That the greatest sexual organ is not the vagina and the penis, is the brain. And remember what I said, that they did some research. They found people that, we are not having, could not have sex, or because they were, they had been castrated or something. And then they stimulate certain part of their brain and they were having orgasm without touching their sexual organs. That tells you that the real sexual experience is in the brain. And that is why you can touch someone's body from now to tomorrow. If that person's brain is not engaged, the person will not be engaged. Especially for female, because of the interplay of a lot of hormones. For men, it might be a bit easier to touch different parts of the body, but especially for the woman, because as I said, the complexity, I don't want to go into that, but research found that the way men and women use their brain power is different. For you to fully engage women crosses between two parts of the brain more, whereas men utilize a part more. I need to go and read more about that so that I don't give you the wrong information. But just know that the way male and female engage their lobes of the different lobes of their brain is different. And so because of that, their responses will be different, And so you find out that if your brain is not really, I'm telling you what I'm telling you. I've seen quite some men will tell you they are using Viagra. It's not Viagra you need. It is the healing of the relationship. Viagra, if you have prostate issues and you have some issues with, for a lot of people, some people might have organic problems. But for some people, I've seen somebody will say, every time I'm with my wife, I cannot just seem to have an erection. And then as we are talking, there are so many underlying emotional issues. The person mentally is dissatisfied, is angry, is upset with his wife. It's not possible. We will look at that. I don't want to go into that during this season. We'll look at that in part 4. All the things that can go wrong. Trauma, anger, infidelity and all of that. But when your mind is not fully engaged with that partner, your mind and your heart, then your body is just a little part of it. Wall socket sex can occur independent of intercourse, orgasm, or even direct genital stimulation. You can be lying down with your spouse and have this electrification, and almost as if the body has melted into one, without it's orgasm is not always the goal. It is a byproduct. Unfortunately, we have made it the goal. And so, and because of that, we have lost out on intimacy. And he said something that there is an electrification. Let me read something he said here. He said, when you read his description, it was so powerful. It says, wall socket sex is when boundaries between you and your partner shift or cease to exist. When you feel your partner next to you without touching, as if your bodies are intermingled, your skin feels open, your pores enlarge. And that's why it says that this is called mature love. Because to get into that level is a level of honesty, complete honesty. And we look at how that honesty, the journey towards that honesty starting. It's a journey of complete honesty, complete openness. It's a journey where, you are not manipulating, because you see, we feel, even if I don't know what you are doing, because we can feel as human beings. When you are manipulating, the other person can feel, but will not know what he or she is feeling. Because we are spiritual beings, we can feel hearts. And so when one partner is manipulative, don't think that you are deceiving. The person might not physically know what you are doing, but subconsciously, the person is impacting the person, and the person is reacting without even realizing what he or she is reacting to. Because we were created for honesty. We were created as human beings for truth. And so when there is dishonesty and untruthfulness in a relationship, your spirit will feel it. And you will not, and things will not be as you want it. It says that finally, it is about self-integration, uniting your head and heart with your genitals. Intense sexual responsiveness with increased maturity, self-understanding, and self-control. You can imagine, when I teach singles, I say to them, you think self-control is not needed in marriage? When we are teaching you self-control before you get married. Self-control is needed throughout life. It's needed in every relationship, even in marital sexuality. Because in order to have wall socket sex, you must have self-control. You must be able to control yourself, to give yourself fully to another, and experience that other also. And so this is why the author contends that young people simply aren't grown up enough for such transformational sex. True intimacy is achievable as we become more self-aware of how we show up in this world. When we choose to be honest and not hide and decide to experience life fully. True intimacy is the working of two people daily to truly become one. It is not a path for the faint heart. It is to become naked and not ashamed. Vulnerability without fear, because perfect love casts out fear. Perfect love casts out fear. Finally, brethren, whatever things are true, noble, just, pure, lovely, good report, there's virtue in it. Those are the things that our mind should be on. Be kindly affectionate to one another with brotherly love, in honor, giving preference to one another. These are the things that will bring the highest level of intimacy and wall socket sex. It is not in the technique. I was sitting today and I was like, people will be thinking it's time to talk about techniques. Wall socket sex is not about technique. It is about connection. It is about bonding. It is not how well you know how to somersault, or whether it is, I could teach techniques, whether it is man on top, woman on top, course-wise. military method. Name them. It is not about all of that. Because when you begin to bond and truly connect, the innate in you begins to move together in synchrony. It's almost like a dance. That your body will shift in positions to accommodate each other. That you just know, the innate in you just move in a way that envelopes and allows the fullness of the other person. And you will find the technique that is comfortable to you, that honors your relationship, that just allows you to truly be skin on skin, to be one with that person. And finally, I round up here. Sensory homunculus. Remember what we said, the power of touch. The hand. See how big the hand, as part of your senses. See the biggest part of your senses, the hand, your face, your lips. All these parts of your body are important for bonding, are important for releasing oxytocin. Your hand. Somebody did a research and said that if you are trying to solve a problem, hold hands with your spouse as you are trying to have that discussion. Just hold each other's hands. That you find that it's difficult for you to continue to hold hand and be angry. It's so interesting. And I ask couples to try, that what happens is if you want to be angry, you just say, leave my hand. You cut off your hand. You just take your hand off. But for as long as you are holding each other's hands, it's difficult to continue to be angry or say angry words. You will have to break that contact. You have to remove your hands. The lips. Why kissing is an art. I saw a book and I will show. Some of us have to go and learn how to really kiss and find out, ask our spouse, don't just assume, don't feel embarrassed. Kissing is not about pouring saliva into another person's mouth. It is just an art. The face, touching each other's face, can be such an erotic and a bonding thing that we miss out on because we only touch many times only when we want to have sex. But look at what we've seen in all this journey. The real sex is all that you do before the physical act. What really causes sex to really to bring about bonding is every other thing, the touching, the hand, the face, what you do when you are not even in the bedroom. Look at what I was showing you. Look at the part of your brain. The part of your brain that focuses on the face, the lip, the tongue, the hand, is more than 2/3 of your brain. The sexual organ is somewhere here, just tiny here. All this part of your brain. So you can imagine when you now sensitize the hand, sensitize the face, sensitize the tongue. My goodness, the body is already on fire for the spouse. There's an exercise that we normally give couples that are having problems with intimacy. It's called sensate focus. But it's not just only for intimacy problem. I feel that every couple getting to know each other should do this. What is sensate focus? So it was developed by two therapists called Master and Johnson. You can go and read more about it because of our time. But basically, sensate focus, we tell couples that for the next 1 week, especially couples that are having problems with sex, it says, arrange, have a date of knowing each other, and during that date, spend at least 30 minutes just touching each other. Get a nice clean sheet, nice music, relaxing atmosphere, and then the couples are both naked, or you can take each other's clothes off gradually. You don't have to be naked. And you touch every part of your body apart from the genitals and the breast. You don't touch the breast, you don't touch the genitals. And as you are touching, you are asking your spouse, how does this feel? Do you like me to touch you like this? Or should I touch you like this? Or should I touch you like this? Is this pressure? You touch the face, you touch the lip, you touch the eyes, you touch the neck, you are studying your spouse. You are getting to know their body like an instrument that you are playing, like you are playing a violin or a harp. You are getting to know the tunes. You are getting to know when I sometimes say I don't know how to play the harp, but I just make noise on it. But I have learned to know the sound. I've been learning it for months. And I now know which string gives me which. If I tune this string, this is the sound. If I tune this string, this is the sound. And now I'm learning to combine the tunes, because I've learned to learn the sound. You have to learn the sound of your spouse's body. That if I touch it this way, and that will take, no book will teach you that. It is your spouse's body that will teach you. For some of you might have been married for 10, 15 years. It does not matter where you start from. Some of you, you've never really taken time to really know your spouse's body. You just go in, jump out. It's time to go back and say, this exercise will not end in sex. You will do it, and afterwards, some people will say, I will do all of this and I won't have sex. No, this is called getting to know. Getting to know is called exploration. And you will do it and you won't have sex. You can decide to have sex at another time. But when you are doing this, the goal is not to end in intercourse. The goal is to know the body. Then when you have done that, you have learned the body well enough, then you can move to stage 2, which can even be after a couple of days. And this is just getting to know. And normally this is good for even newlywed. I don't know where we developed this thing that you must have sex on the wedding day, on the wedding night. It is not a mandatory thing. What people should do on the wedding day, they should start that journey of actually getting, some people will say, don't start that too. How can you say that? So I don't want to go there. So I end here. Part 4 will be male sexual problems, female sexual problems, trauma, intimacy, and healing. So thank you so much.
If the altar's where you meet us, take me there. What you need is just an offering. It's right here, my life is here, and I'll be a living sacrifice for you. You're refined, the refiner. I wanna be consumed, I wanna be tried by fire, purified. You take whatever you desire, yeah. Lord, here's my life. I wanna be tried by fire, purified. You take whatever you desire. Lord, here's my life, yeah. If your glory wants to come